Love Flops is an original series from Passione, the studio that worked on Harem in the Labyrinth and the Higurashi reboot. This rom-com harem anime is centered around Asahi Kashiwagi, a teenager that one day has some unusual encounters with 5 people on his way to school after watching a fortune-telling segment. When Asahi finally arrives at school, he is surprised to discover that those individuals are new transfer students as well as his new teacher. Things continue to get weirder for him later on when these girls suddenly start confessing their love for him and show up at his house unannounced. Asahi learns that his father sent them to live with him in hopes that he might choose one of them as a potential bride. Initially, he's reluctant to let the girls stay with him, but eventually he decides to let them live there since they have nowhere else to go. As the days pass by, Asahi begins to cherish his time with them as forgotten memories begin to resurface within each of his potential partners. This show might start off a little slow, but it has a surprisingly good story. The first couple episodes set up the initial premise and introduce Asahi's potential brides, Amelia Irving, Karine Estelle, Aoi Izumisawa, Ilya Ilyukin, and Bai Mangfa. The narrative doesn't really move forward until episode 7, as Amelia, Karine, Mangfa, and Ilya each get an episode that focuses a lot more on them. I think sacrificing the pacing in the beginning to focus on these 4 characters was a smart decision, as it gives the audience time to get to know these characters and fleshes them out a little bit. For instance, episode 4 highlights Amelia's personality and flaws as Asahi helps her learn kanji. These episodes also serve to build up the relationship between the girls and Asahi, which was necessary so that certain events later on in the story would be impactful. The Karine and Mangfa-centric episodes were a nice change of pace from the slower, more relaxed slice-of-life stuff that came before it. They each feature a distinct storyline that introduces another facet to these characters alongside a few action sequences. Love Flops has a handful of action scenes that are just serviceable at best, but I appreciate how bloody and violent the initial scenes were. After watching episodes 5 and 6, I began to wonder about the cohesion of this show's world, given what is established surrounding Karine and Mangfa. The Karine-focused episode included a ridiculous plot involving aliens that was fairly entertaining, but ultimately left me baffled as to how everything set up so far was going to fit together in a way that makes sense. Following those episodes, the story begins to advance, and things start to get interesting. There is an excellent plot twist later on in the series that I totally didn't see coming. Once certain things were revealed, a lot of stuff from the previous episodes became a lot clearer. Series writer Ryo Yasumoto has crafted a pretty tight story that fully takes advantage of its futuristic setting. Over halfway through the show, Yasumoto begins to develop the protagonist through flashbacks involving his childhood friend Ai. The writer also effectively raises the stakes as a new conflict is introduced heading into the final 3 episodes. While the narrative got a little predictable toward the end, the finale was still great. Love Flops was much better than I thought it was going to be after watching the first few episodes. Initially, I wasn't impressed by the writing in the beginning of the series, but I came to appreciate it more once I went back and rewatched some of it. I tried looking for plot holes, but thankfully I couldn't find any. In addition to having a great narrative, the comedy in this show is solid. The first couple episodes feature some very amusing scenes between Asahi and his potential brides. Little moments like him ignoring Karine on his way home, or being annoyed by the girls not giving him enough space, got quite a few chuckles out of me. Something that caught me off guard when I began watching this series was how mature it is. This show contains a fair amount of fan service and sexual references. I'm not exaggerating when I say this show is Ultra Instinct levels of horny. Just look at these episode titles. There is a scene in the premiere where Asahi gets a drink from the vending machine that says, "My banana is 8 inches." There's also a crazy scene with a dog in that episode which I won't spoil. It's one of the show's most absurdly amusing moments that won't work for everyone, I'm sure. In fact, I expect many people might be turned off by certain scenes in this series, but it's not the worst I've seen, especially from this particular studio. I think it's also worth noting that this show contains some nudity, but it's censored. Before I close this video out, I need to touch briefly on this show's presentation. The production is pretty by the numbers, and while the animation isn't bad, it could be much better. Visually speaking, this show isn't very impressive. The only thing that stuck out to me was the purple hue around the outlines of the characters. All things considered, Love Flops is a solid rom-com harem series with fun characters, a well-written story, and plenty of funny moments. Its production doesn't compare to a lot of the big-name heavy hitters of the genre, and the narrative slows down a bit in the beginning. Nevertheless, it's a series I can wholeheartedly recommend if you like harem anime and don't mind fan service scenes. If you've seen this show, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.